The Vintage Roast with Dan Ahdoot and Jessica Montes.
Welcome to another episode of The Vintage Roast. I'm your host, Dan Ahdoot.
And I'm Jessica Montes.
And we're going back to one of our faves, if not our fave, the Frugal Gourmet. Love the Frug. Again, we separate the art from the artist on the Vintage Roast. You know, there's allegations out there. We put that to the side and we enjoy some wholesome American cooking with no pedophilia at all involved. So, what are we watching today, Jessica?
So this is the Frug Soul Food episode.
Okay, I'm sure this is not going to be problematic whatsoever. Here we go. Are you? The little jingles. I'm actually like singing them in the shower now. Now that we've been watching all these.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, turn it down.
Dun, 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 dun. Ooh.
It's a weird shot.
Was that a new one? I don't think I remember the eyebrow going like that.
I don't remember that either, but I don't think it's new. You probably missed it.
All right, Frug, let's go.
How are you? Today it's soul, as we continue our search for our roots in terms of American cooking.
Roots.
Now, I know some of you think that
Who
soul,
says roots like
which
roots?
is always associated
Is that
with
like
black
a...
cooking, is not really what would we call it, American
I didn't say
mainstream.
roots.
Nothing could be farther from the truth. Do you realize that there were black citizens in this culture long before the slave trade occurred? They came from Europe and they came from Africa as free citizens hundreds of years ago, and they've been here ever since. So we're talking about soul cooking now as a legitimate form of American celebration.
Meaning that food that the slaves made was completely illegitimate.
In terms of a special memory.
This is not that slave food. Okay, this is not. There were other black people here cooking.
Wonderful thing to know and a wonderful thing to have.
This is their food.
Big family thinking. And I think it's fascinating, and I love it.
He really likes to claim everything is American, by the way, too.
I know.
Background of soul. You have to go back to the slave trade, because the slaves were issued in the old days very, how we put it, cheap cuts of meat from the pig, for instance. They practically live on hogs, and they were issued the feet and the pork neck bones, or the innards. You see, the intestines of the pig, so that they always ate low on the hog. And the master.
I feel like we're going to get in trouble this episode.
Oh, I didn't know that's what low on the hog and high on the hog meant. This is good. I'm learning something.
Wanted to talk about someone else thinking they were really big time. You know, they're really very arrogant. He'd say, "Well, doesn't he think he looks? Doesn't he think he looks like one who eats high on the hog?" High on the hog means a much better cut of meat, and it became a way of thinking. When you consider our own background as Americans, you have to understand that the blacks who came to this country took on American food products through and through. They were Native Americans as much as any other culture, because they learned using Native American foods right off the bat. You know, George Washington's cook was black. Tom Jefferson's cook was black. Don't tell me that we're talking about something that isn't thoroughly American or in any way foreign. That's just utter nonsense. For instance, rice came with them from Africa.
Really selling this American idea.
I'm into this rah-rah jingoism.
A common food that had been in Africa. Okra was called gamos in Africa. They knew all of the peanuts were ground nuts. Camp peas were black-eyed peas. It goes on. Cow peas were black-eyed peas. It goes on and on and on and on and on. So you have to understand that the black got involved in this culture from the very beginning. Soul belongs, and out of this came a tradition that we found on everything from Pullman cars in the early days of the railroad to wonderful restaurants that were run by black chefs. In our time, you can still find restaurants that sell good soul cooking. I have a favorite place here in Chicago called Jerry's, and Jerry is a kick. I don't mean he's a hilarious man. He's a serious worker, but he's a fine cook, and he doesn't talk a lot when he's working. Here he's putting a catfish steaks in an egg wash.
Because you're probably like yelling at him about how
cornmeal.
This is not black food, it's American food.
That he wouldn't tell me about. Well, I know what it is. At least I think I do. He calls it season, and I think it's simply a seasoning salt. A commercial one would do fine, but I want you to use one that has less salt and MSG in it. In any case, he's going to plop these. You see, look at the amount of cornmeal he uses. That's American cooking. Cornmeal's American, right? He puts the catfish coated with
I
cornmeal.
think the Mexicans probably have something to say about that.
Down it goes. Those will toast for a bit. And when he hauls them out, they have the most unusual crunchy crust. These are chitlins, low on the hog. The chitlins are the intestine of the pig. It takes hours and hours and hours to cook because you have to clean them so carefully. Otherwise, they'll be very sharp and flavored. And of course, some sweet potatoes, which in the old days were called yams, and they're really not yams. Yams coming from Africa, and sweet potatoes being terribly American. Now, I'm going to check this crust, which is primarily cornmeal,
really
like
a bit of American,
and some season, as Jerry calls it. And it's very, very crispy. I was really.
What is that passive aggressive seasoning, as Jerry calls it?
Laid out the whole spread.
Season.
Pork chops, deep fried catfish, beautiful ham hocks, and black-eyed peas. We're talking soul. And chitlins, of course. And finally, a wonderful dish of a pie made from sweet potatoes. So there you have the whole works. I want to show you most of those dishes today.
That looks pretty fun, actually.
First of all, let me try some chitlins. Now, I think I lost one of my staff because Todd works hard for me, but when I gave him 5 pounds of chitlins and I said, here, clean these for me. Well, what you have to do, whoops, wrong kettle. What you have to do with chitlins is to open the intestines, it's the intestinal tract, you see, and you have to work on it for the longest time to scrape off the fat so that what you come up with, then you cook these for a long, long time.
So did he quit, or?
He's just like, I've had enough of just low on the hog cooking. I actually love chitlins. There, I said it.
And then at the last, you add a bit of green pepper.
I don't like anything like that.
And then serve them. Yes,
Striped.
Serve them up, as you'd say in the South. They're really very delicious. They're very strong if you don't clean them thoroughly. You soak them in salt water and wash them all. I'm not going to show you how to do this today, but I'll get the recipe to you someday in a book or something. But they really are delicious.
I love when he's just like, here it is. Don't worry. Google it. Before Google. Just Google it.
Interesting dish, a batch of chitlins that I pan-fried with an egg wash and cracker crumbs. These are terrific. They're crunchy and delicious, and they don't.
And you'll never know how to make them.
Not at all. So just don't worry about it. They're very, very delicious. Now,
don't worry about that.
Collard greens. We're going down home.
Trust them.
Hang on to your chair. Collard greens again. Here's a big pot full. Oh, let me show you how to clean these first. Collard greens.
Really winging it today, Frug.
Could have been found in Africa, and they're certainly typical of vegetables that grow wild in the South. But it takes a lot of time to clean these rascals, and you spend a whole. Well, you've got to have kettles full of this stuff in order to make a meal. You see, but you have to remember that down south, the slave was not allowed. To eat the same thing that the plantation owner would have. What he wound up with was the leftovers. But he was allowed to grow certain things for himself. He was issued a peck of cornmeal several times a year, and he was issued some bacon, that sort of thing. But he began to grow his own vegetables. And out of that came a whole tradition on cooking vegetables. So let me show you how to cook collards as close as I can get to the original. First of all, we need a kettle. My bacon has solidified, but I blanched the bacon.
Such a tightrope he's walking.
And into that,
he is walking a tightrope.
The collard greens. And I don't want a few in here. We've got to put a whole bundle in here because this is going to cook down. So I'm going to actually fill the kettle. This is about 4 bunches. And then into that, I'm going to put, when we use the word stock, I'm generally assuming that this is either pork stock or chicken stock, but I'm going to use chicken stock.
I love
and you see how
good collard greens.
Mine is because I made it myself.
Whoa.
Good chicken stock. You know how to make
good
chicken
stock.
Use that and put those on a hot burner now and let them cook down. And this is what you'll come up with. Let them cook down. No seasoning, at least not yet. And let them cook up.
You need more space for throwing shit in the sink.
What you have. There, these are finished and ready to go. Stir in the bacon. Now we need to add some salt and pepper and some Tabasco. Yes, yes, Tabasco. That's good stuff. That'll do us. That's very southern. Don't ask me if the early slaves had Tabasco. I don't know. I think they just used peppers. That's good. All right. And you can put in some salt and pepper too.
I would bet they didn't have Tabasco.
Right.
I'm gonna
collard greens are ready to go.
Take a wild guess there.
Dish. I think it's vegetables. Next, let me find out. Yes,
there's 2 things the slave didn't have.
I learned this one.
Tabasco and freedom.
But I learned this one
That's
from a dear lady from Mississippi. and it's a wonderful dish. Okra is a beautiful vegetable.
Oh, I love okra. I love
You don't
okra.
have any
I love
holes,
okra.
I
Here
chopped
we
them all
go.
up for you. No fair.
I don't like okra
Anyhow,
either.
Cut your fresh
God
okra
damn it,
up
Jessica.
into little bitty
It's so
pieces like
slimy
this,
and
you see?
gross.
I know,
See
but
what
you
they-
gotta
they're
embrace
a
the
little
slime.
long, a little long rascal. Looks like a tiny green banana, and cut off the top and the bottom, and then
I don't think
cut
I'd
them into
ever
little pieces
describe
like
an
this.
okra as looking like a
Fresh
tiny
ones.
green
You can do this
banana.
with frozen, but it's
But-
not,
Maybe a
same.
cucumber
You
or
want
a
to make
Maybe-
squash.
an egg
Yeah.
mixed with about a tablespoon of water. I have about a pound of okra here, and to that we're going to add some cornmeal. That's all there is
Oh,
to
deep
this.
fried okra is
A little bit of cornmeal.
delish.
I don't know if I've had it deep
There we
fried.
go.
It's
And some
actually
salt and
way
pepper.
less slimy too.
And we've got a dish that's just terrific. Here's some pepper. I had a dinner with this gorgeous Mississippi woman one afternoon,
Oh.
and I was eating the collard greens and the fried okra, and she had a big roast beef too because she knew I was a lover of good food, so she had some other things prepared for me. And all I did was to eat fried okra and collard greens, and she had another one too, another kind of pea product. I can't remember the name. But anyhow, I was eating away, and finally she stopped and she said, "Look at that boy eat." She said, "He won't even eat his roast beef." With good vegetables, you don't have to have roast beef. Why bother? And that's a
Who was this mystery woman, Frug? What was this lunch?
Because we eat too much meat. You know, Tom Jefferson.
It's kind of
loved
rude
vegetables,
not to
and he
try
spent
it
most of
all,
his time
everything
eating
she made for
vegetables
you.
with a little bit of meat for flavor.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing
No.
that you would have found down south and that you still find with the black community. Originally, I know it was because of destitution, but now it's become an art form. You use meat for flavoring. I'll show you what I mean. Now, put the okra in a frying pan with a little bit of bacon fat in it.
I'm gonna shut the hell up for a lot of
Just
this
a little bacon fat
episode.
in this one. Put it in a hot
I'm
frying
gonna let
pan.
Frug
and then
do the heavy lifting.
Stir this a bit as it cooks over the burner so that well, I'll show you. What happens is that the cornmeal and the okra, you see, begin to separate. So you have a pan-fried vegetable that's just.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I can't stand it. I've got to do it now. That's just terrific. Corn and okra. Now the corn was very American.
That doesn't look
The
that
okra
great to
is
me.
similar to a vegetable
pretty
that
dry.
the black
Didn't
would have
look
known in
great.
Africa. So here's a very American blending. You see? That's what we're talking about. Very American blending. Now let's see. What's another one? The next one I want to show you is so easy to do, but it sounds strange to you because you think of black-eyed peas as being some kind of peasant food. Please, it's not peasant food. It may have been in the South. There's some theories
No.
that say
No
that
one
blacks
thinks
were
it's
not allowed
peasant
to ask
food.
for white beans. They had to ask for red beans or black eyes. That's how threatened and angry the whites were with the black slaves in those days. Can you imagine living like that? Horrible. First time I ever went into Virginia and found separated bathrooms, I went crazy. 1960, I think. Went crazy. Here's a dish that belongs to all of us.
I don't think beans
Black-eyed
were a
peas
huge concern. Do you?
With ham hocks. Easy to do and just heaven. Here you go. First of all,
Oh, that looks freaking awesome.
put 3 ham hocks. I'm using these old black kettles, you see. 2 of the ham hocks, we're going to cover them with water.
So
Oh,
ham
about
hocks
a
are
quart, I think.
smoked
And then
pig
you
feet,
want to use
basically.
black-eyed peas, and I generally soak mine.
Really?
Now,
I
don't
think
soak them
so.
overnight, because
Maybe
there's a
I'm
new
wrong.
theory.
Shit.
Oh,
I didn't think you were going to question
Well,
me. I
you know
thought I
the
could
bubbles
just
that
get away
form
with
in
that.
peas overnight?
God damn it,
The theory is
Jessica.
that those peas are
Well, that makes me
fermenting.
not want to eat it.
Instead of just
All right,
absorbing
find out
water,
what
they
ham
ferment
hocks
overnight.
are.
So what you wind up with is something that you really don't want. Namely, fermented beans when all you want are beans that have softened. So I soak mine for about 4 hours. Now, put your hocks in the pot, cover them with water, and boil these for about, I would say about 2 hours. At the end of the 2
pork
hours,
knuckle,
now we
joint
change
between the
At the end of the 2
fibula,
hours, we're going to add to our kettle.
fibula,
Room here. Because I have a
and
pot already
martitulfils.
finished.
Yeah,
We're going
the
to add to our
foot of a
kettle our
pig.
black-eyed
Yeah,
peas.
that's
You're right.
that's all right. Whew.
Let me drain these. Remember I told you I
Yeah.
soaked them for about 4
Yeah,
hours.
screw you, Jessica. How dare you doubt me?
This is so delicious. And it really is down home. That's about a ½ a pound soaked up. Now, before you soak these, the pea looks much smaller, you see. Whoops, I lost one in there. That'll be crunchy. So you soak these for about 4 hours and they swell up and they'll cook much quicker that way. Be much more tender. Otherwise, you'll be cooking all day long. We've already cooked the hocks for 2 hours, remember? Now and then we put our beans or black-eyed peas. They're really not peas at all. They're a black-eyed
It's like a little game. The one who bites into the crunchy one wins their freedom.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Some green pepper, good green pepper chopped up, some celery. How much? Oh, 2 stalks.
It's like a king cake, but you break your tooth.
That goes on the stove. And you're ready to go. Along with some crushed red pepper flakes. And bring this to a simmer. And cook it
That's
until the beans
probably
are tender. You might
so
want to add
good.
some salt and pepper too. Let's do that. Oh no, no salt. Stop. Hold it. You don't need salt because the ham hocks are already salted. We're using smoked hocks, remember? Those are cured in salt, so we don't want that.
Oh, they are smoked, Jessica. They're smoked. Just like I goddamn said they were.
Right. But down south, you see, in a hot summer day, peppers will help you perspire and therefore help keep you cool. You have to understand that about seasoning. Some things you do that makes your system hot in order to perspire so that you're going to cool off. And in the wintertime, of course, you eat this because you're freezing to death. That's how it goes. There.
That's how it goes. You don't need AC. You don't need heat. You just need the right seasonings.
Here's the pot. Whoops, come here, you. Here's the pot. Here's a great big ham hock. Isn't that gorgeous?
Oh, give it to me.
Smoky, wonderful flavor. There's just enough meat on there to keep you happy. And this would be a whole meal. Along with, of course, a pancake made of cornmeal, which would have been called a hoe cake, because in the old days, you see,
A hoe cake, you say?
didn't have the kind of equipment they'd need, so they were stuck with using a hoe to make a hoe cake out in the field. Crazy way, huh? But they did it, and it's very delicious. So here's a hoe cake.
I'm still confused.
Corn pancake.
I don't know how you'd cook that on a hoe.
And a
A
beautiful
hoe? Doesn't a hoe? Oh no, a hoe is flat, or a hoe is like I'm thinking of a rake. Yeah, I guess a hoe has a flat thing. You can
Yeah.
you can MacGyver a frying pan out of it.
Is raised to new glory if you'll chicken fry them. Chicken fried pork chop. I'll show you what I mean. First of all, we need a couple of pork chops.
He really hasn't shown us how to cook
We
much.
need an egg wash.
No, I think he's just freaking out of.
There we
He's
are.
just trying not to get canceled.
I don't like to leave the pork sitting out, because it's
He's not doing a good job.
it'll
He's
go
not
on.
trying that
You have to
hard.
Be careful with it. So I keep mine covered up and.
He did say when he
ready.
saw
All
a
right.
separated
Now, first of all,
bathroom, he
we
went
have an egg
crazy.
wash
So
here.
Oh, right.
he's an
Egg
ally.
wash is simply a couple of eggs with a bit of water, so that it's and you whip it. Please understand, when you whip up eggs, whip them up in a small container. Don't try and whip them up in a big one because they'll be stringy on you. You've got to whip them up in a small container with a fork or a little mixer and some water.
Is
and
that
then you get
true?
a nice
Like,
smooth
what's the
wash.
difference?
That's what I want. Now,
I don't
into my
know.
container.
I don't know.
This is not Jerry's secret.
I'm
Remember Jerry's soul food place? This is not Jerry's secret sauce, but
I'm
I'm
busy. I'm busy trying to
This
see
is
him
what he
cancel.
does.
Get
If
canceled
Jerry
there.
doesn't agree to this.
By the way, did you
then
hear
we're in
that?
trouble.
This
I
isn't
always
Jerry's.
ask Shirley.
This isn't Jerry's
Shirley's his
seasoning.
wife. Did you see her
Yeah, it's
dishing
America
up the,
seasoning. God damn it.
Dishing up the, what was it? Sweet potatoes.
This is the real seasoning.
All right. Now this is what he does. I think he adds a
The
seasoned
correct
salt
seasoning.
to corn and flour. Now, I don't know that you should necessarily use a seasoned salt that you buy commercially. After all, seasoned salt simply consists of, and you can make your own, salt, a tiny bit of sugar, some paprika, some celery salt, some cayenne, and some garlic powder. Now, they also
Or you
add
could just buy it all in
MSG.
one bottle.
Guess what?
Yeah, exactly.
Need it. And the
Seems to make a
idea
lot more
of
sense
an
to just
old
fucking
black chef in the South
bite the
standing over
bullet
a
and
great
spend the
pot,
$2
this
on
enormous
the
woman
Laurie's
who has
salt.
100 people depending upon her. You see, gorgeous woman. She's going to stand there and shake MSG into her pot. Come on. Come on. That's not the issue. She uses spices. She uses good herbs. And the old line is a lot of love. That was typical of the whole tradition of soul. It was family food. Well, you understand. All right, let's cook up the pork chops. I'm going to.
That was his anti-MSG rant.
Egg wash first, then into the.
Wow, look at those
mixture of
tiny
flour,
ass 1
cornmeal,
centimeter thick pork chops.
and seasonings. And I'll do another one here for you.
I've never been a
We're gonna
big
put a little
pork chop
pepper on
fan
those
because
and
I
you can
always think
fry
they
them.
come out way too dry.
Just before
Yeah, I agree.
You came, why some of my friends came marching over and looked at the pan-fried pork chops and immediately began to drool. Well, I threw them out of my kitchen. I just don't need that till later. But they are really delicious.
What are your friends doing in the studio, Frug? You got a little entourage?
Because I like pepper. That's
You got a
why.
little Frugal Gourmet
And how
entourage
bread is.
going?
You remember when Jerry did this, he had an enormous batch of breading. just enormous batch so that you could get a nice thick coating on it. And he kind of pressed it in. And I think that's the secret. Get a lot of breading or a lot of coating. Okay, now these will go in a frying pan, right? Just as they are. They'll go in a frying pan. And you want to cook these over, I would say, we call it medium heat, so that you don't burn them on the outside.
So my guess is the stove doesn't even work.
I don't think anything is on. Yeah, the electricity was out at the studio this day.
No, you don't. Be careful with him. But I don't want you to dry him out. So use medium heat. And this is what you'll come up with. I want to dish up a whole plate here. If I can find a plate. Here we go.
Yeah, he's not even showing how to cook it. He's just saying put it on medium.
Here's the pan. We have...
Yeah, he's really phoning it in on the cooking this episode. I didn't even realize that. He hasn't cooked one thing.
Yeah. Fried pork chop.
Frug.
Chicken coated, you see. And I want to put some okra on this. The okra will...
Frug just had all of his interns make everything, and now he's like presenting it like it's his own.
Put it on the side.
Some dry okra.
There we go. And now what else do we need? Well, you know what else we need.
Collards.
A big batch of beautiful sweet potatoes. And I've cooked these already for you.
I wanted collards.
So
Damn it.
I'm not going to worry about giving you the recipe again. But
you didn't cook anything. And give us the recipe. We don't know how you did any of this stuff, Frug.
And sugar and the tiniest bit of water. This came from a recipe from a black chef in Seattle. Oh, I can't remember.
Or
her
just
name,
a chef
when
in
I did
Seattle.
This recipe for you a while back, why I told you. This was close to the yam that came from Africa, along with the black
chef,
slaves.
but yeah,
all right,
sure.
Here's a dinner plate.
Doesn't have the recipe.
What does soul mean in Brooklyn? I don't know. In Brooklyn, you'd say to die for. To die for. It's so beautiful. What's next? I have some other dishes I want you to see.
Well, this one, this was just when Brooklyn was like Hasidic Jews. It was to die for.
Oh, another one.
Before the hipsterification of Brooklyn.
Was typical of later Southern eating are grits. And grits were in Africa. A similar dish made of wheat was called fufu. But this is corn. And the corn is treated with lye in order to make hominy. And then the hominy is ground in order to make coarse ground. You see, like a polenta, and you wind it with something called grits. And
he just gave us 7 words that we don't know what they mean.
And one of the things you do
corn is treated with lye. No one knows what that is. The lye turns into a hominy. No one knows what hominy is. And then you turn into clemony.
How will I say
and
this?
then you turn that into grits.
Not because it was old slave food. Not because you have to, but because
here we go.
You can choose to. And that's the
camera's coming in.
Close up. Call historic food. Eating that you do because you want to, because you want to remember. You know, feeding your son fried chitlins is probably something that is terribly, terribly important to a grandma whose kids have moved off to Cincinnati. You know, she doesn't get to see them often enough, so she would do this in order to say, taste your memories. Remember this. Your grandpa used to live on these. He loved them, you see. That's important. All right, I have some others here for you. Boy, do I ever. Another good thing.
Getting
every once in a while,
soulful, for lack of a better word.
If you were on the plantation.
Did he put the collard greens out there on his presentation table?
I might as well say,
no.
You'd steal a hog. And then there'd be a great festival, and you'd bring in all the neighbors. And one of the things you would do, of course, is to... that's not quite too hot to handle. I've oven barbecued these, which, of course, you'll not approve of.
Some ribs out of nowhere.
Black chef, because the black chef would do this over a wood fire.
The black chef.
Very, very slowly, so that you almost smoke them to death until they're very tender. Now, I'll do that for you at another time, I promise. The barbecued ribs.
What are we doing here today?
Would help.
There's a lot of promises that he's making.
We'll add those to the pile here. Aren't they gorgeous?
By the way,
Beautiful
no recipe. Look what I did.
Need,
look what I had in my oven, guys.
Ready?
Peekaboo.
The last thing that Jerry had
ribs.
In his line was a sweet potato pie. Now this is made just as you would make a pumpkin pie.
He doesn't cook anything.
In this case, I used
nothing.
Some eggs and milk and cream, just like you used to use.
This is the easiest cooking job.
Milk and cream. Yeah, eggs and milk and cream.
Where you would have gotten bourbon in the old days, but this makes a
Frug,
wonderful, wonderful.
You haven't taught us how to make anything except for the collard greens.
Just delicious. There. Look at it. Isn't that gorgeous? Stand up. There you are. It looks like pumpkin pie. The kid's going to say, I think it's pumpkin pie. But when he tastes it, he's going to know that it's anything but pumpkin. It is a very, very rich and delicious flavor.
Well, it's not anything but pumpkin. It's sweet potatoes.
One more.
One thing but pumpkin.
Put these on a bowl for you. When,
Sweet potatoes.
When the old plantation owner would come down to slave quarters, very often he would march into the kitchen and simply help himself to pickled pork parts, to pickled pig's feet. And we have here some knuckles that are absolutely delicious. Pickled pig knuckles, again, low on the animal, but oh, high in quality and flavor and wonderful food. My dad used to sit around. Hey, I said, funny, I didn't even think of that till just now. My dad used to sit around and eat these all the time with a big cold beer. He loved pickled. I thought it was disgusting. Finally, one day, I tried one. Well, now I'm hooked. And finally, I have a kettle. I swear I've got a kettle of pork. Here it is. Okay. Another thing that you could buy, and it wasn't terribly expensive, was the pork neck bone of the pig. And the butcher would cut them up for you. They're not at all expensive. The butcher will cut them up for you, and then you cook them with vegetables. In this case, I've used them with sauerkraut. Now, a good black chef will say, no, it's supposed to be greens, you see, or beans. And that's true. But I happen to like these with sauerkraut, so I thought I would just throw in this one last one for you so that we wouldn't forget that there are other possibilities. Germans would do it this way, too. But the vegetables that were found on the plantation generally went to the house if they were important things, you see, big things. The fancy stuff would go to the main mansion. But cowslips and dandelion greens and collard greens could go to the slave quarters. So they were allowed their own little garden very often. And it's in that case that Grandma, you see, really began to come into her own. She had American food products. And with that, she coupled those with a memory from African food products and came up with a cuisine that no one in the world has. You see, that's why I contend that it is totally and utterly American. And if you've never tasted these dishes, you've missed out. You're just foolish not to taste them. Go find a good black soul restaurant if you're not willing to do this yourself. And sit down and order, first of all, some,
Too exotic to bring these flavors into your own home.
some chitlins. Here are the pork neck bones, some collard greens and chitlins, and have a good time. And remember that it's a part of our history because we share all of these things commonly as Americans. Okay, I'm going to quit because I want to eat. Today, we have cooked black food for you, soul food.
No.
I made
You
chitlins,
didn't
both
cook
fried and
anything, Frug.
I made a
You
batch
just
of
brought
hogs
stuff
for you,
out and presented it.
Beautiful chicken fried steaks and spare ribs and pickled knuckles.
Spare ribs
And
was the
finally,
best.
a pie
Hey, look at
made
this
of
in my
sweet
oven.
potatoes
Okay.
Because it's American
Black people make it
and
differently.
it's soul. This is the Frugal Gourmet. Till I see you again, eat well. I bid you peace. Bye-bye.
Bum, 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 bum. All right, we can cut it. So I think the Frug, I'm going to start by saying I respect what he's doing. I respect what he's doing because his viewers have probably never had soul food, and he's trying to introduce them to something fun and exciting. And you have to judge something from, by the time that it came out. And I'm sure back then it was normal to say, the blacks would do it this way. So I think that I will give him the benefit of the doubt that his goals were lofty here. He wanted to introduce people to soul food, which is a wonderful American cuisine that we only have in America. My ding is mostly that he didn't cook anything, and literally no one watching this would be able to recreate any of these dishes at home.
No idea what spices he really used except for seasoning salt at some point. And
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I love the guy who phones in everything is like, when it comes to seasoning salt, no. Go figure out how to make your own.
Right.
Even though I'm cutting every corner, just like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
You go to the ocean, get some water, dry the water, turns into salt. Go to a paprika plant, pick some paprika.
Here are my spare ribs that came out of the oven.
Here. Yeah, that was the best part.
Was ribs on the menu? We don't know. It just showed up.
Oh, yeah, these things that take 7 hours to make, and I'm just not going to tell you how I did it. The best. Love the Frug.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, until
I
next
bid
time.
you peace. I bid you peace, and I bid the blacks peace. I bid the black chefs peace. I bid everyone peace, because peace is a very American thing. I bid you peace.
Thanks for watching The Vintage Roast. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, and tell what your favorite dish was in the comments.